A few years ago, if you would have told me that I'd be working in the Netherlands, I would have asked you, where the heck are the Netherlands? At the time I was finishing my PhD, I was living in another country and trying to figure out what came next. And honestly, I assumed getting hired abroad would be a complicated mess. But after going through the process myself, 3 things really surprised me, and I bet the third one surprises you too. So a bit of context. I had finished my PhD, I was looking for an opportunity outside of academia. I wasn't living in the Netherlands, I didn't have a Dutch passport or network. I didn't have people introducing me to companies, I simply found a role that matched my skills and I applied. Sorry, I have my notes there. From that point on, that experience was very different from what I expected. The first things that surprised me about being abroad was really the obstacle I thought it would be. Before applying, I assumed companies strongly preferred people already living in the Netherlands, which is somewhat true, and maybe some really do, but that wasn't my experience. I discovered that some companies here are very international, and in fact, many aren't even originally Dutch companies. They're international companies that happen to have offices, usually headquarters, here in the Netherlands. And once I realized that, something actually clicked. Companies aren't hiring internationally because they enjoy, obviously, the extra paperwork. They're doing it because they're looking for specific skills that are not accessible here in the Netherlands. And in my case, they weren't interested in where I lived. They were interested in whether I could do the job or not, which was honestly quite reassuring. The second surprise was how structured the process felt. I expected a lot of uncertainty, like sending applications, then just waiting, because that's what I've been used to before. But instead, the process was quite linear here. Application, interview, then feedback, then next step. And what stood out the most wasn't that there was structure, it was that there was momentum. Things were moving, so things moved really quickly here. And I think it's nice that at least the Dutch don't leave you wondering if anything is happening. There's usually like clear next steps, or very quickly you're also discarded. And that was also quite. Another thing I thought would be very difficult would be the relocation itself, in the sense that you always have a lot of bureaucracy involved, at least where I was living in before. And actually in the Netherlands it was very straightforward. I was surprised by how quick everything is. It's just like a couple of documents and you're done. And for example, in my case, I didn't need a visa, so that was quite easy. And there's other things that I think are quite nice here, is that, for example, you can have perks from companies, like you can have, they can help you with the healthcare parts, getting your BSN number, there might be even relocation packages included, things like that, and it's just making the process extremely easy, I would say, as if it's quite normal to them. Looking back, I think the biggest misconception I had was believing that getting hired abroad was mostly about location, that would be the biggest deciding factor, let's say, but it actually wasn't. The biggest deciding factor for me, at least, was finding a company that operates internationally and already hires international people. Once you're talking to that type of company, the conversation becomes a lot easier. Not guaranteed, just easier. And a bit less intimidating than I imagined. And that's probably the thing I wish I'd known before I started, to look what type of company to look. If you're watching this from outside the Netherlands, I'd actually be curious. What's the biggest thing stopping you from applying for jobs abroad?